In life, things don't always go as planned. There are unexpected situations, harsh words, overwhelming pressure, or events that can easily cause us to lose control. But what determines a person's life isn't what happens, but how they react. Some people, because of a moment of anger, lose opportunities, relationships, or even themselves. But others, by remaining calm, turn the situation around and overcome difficult times remarkably. In today's video, we'll explore why staying calm is an important skill and how to cultivate it in daily life. If you want to become a more resilient person in the face of adversity, subscribe to the Simple Philosophy channel to follow more meaningful content. There are times in life when just a moment of losing control is enough to send everything off track. A word spoken in anger can damage a relationship. A hasty decision can lead to lasting consequences. And many times afterward, people look back and wonder if only I had been a little calmer. Therefore, calmness is not a luxury, but a very practical ability that directly impacts the quality of life each day. What does calmness mean, and how should we understand it correctly? Calmness is not the absence of emotions, but rather the ability to recognize and prevent emotions from controlling one's actions. Many people mistakenly believe that being calm means always being composed, not sad, not angry, and not reacting. But in reality, humans cannot be without emotions. Joy, sadness, anger, and anxiety are all natural reactions. The issue isn't whether you have emotions or not, but how you deal with those emotions. Being calm means recognizing your anger, but refraining from saying things you'll regret. It means feeling anxious but not letting that anxiety lead you into hasty decisions. It means being agitated but still taking a moment to think before acting. That pause is small, but incredibly important. It's the boundary between reaction and choice. Agitated person reacts emotionally. A calm person chooses a more appropriate course of action, even if they are still experiencing inner turmoil. This doesn't mean you have to suppress your emotions. On the contrary, you need to identify them more clearly. When you can name your emotions, you'll be less controlled by them. You understand what you're angry about, what you're sad about, and from there you can deal with it appropriately. Why calmness is true strength. People who remain calm tend to see problems more clearly, make more accurate decisions, and hurt others and themselves less. In stressful situations, a calm person isn't necessarily slower, but rather clearer-minded. When emotions run high, a person's ability to perceive a problem often becomes limited. You only see what bothers us, not the bigger picture. We easily misunderstand others, exaggerate problems, and draw inaccurate conclusions. Conversely, by remaining calm, you can take a step back. You see things not only from your own perspective, but also consider many other factors. You can distinguish between emotions and facts, and that helps you make a more informed decision. In the workplace, a calm person tends to handle problems more effectively. They don't get caught up in temporary pressure. They don't rush to blame or panic. Instead, they focus on solutions. And it is this stability that makes them trustworthy. In relationships, calmness is even more important. Much of the hurt doesn't come from a person's nature, but from how they react in a moment of sheer self-control. A single angry remark can shatter something that has been built over a long period. People who remain calm aren't necessarily infallible, but they inflict fewer unnecessary wounds. They know when to speak and when to remain silent. They know when to explain and when to stop. And that's what makes the relationship stronger. Staying calm is also a way to protect yourself. Where you're not led astray by emotions, you're less likely to make decisions you'll regret. But you won't waste energy on unnecessary conflicts. You won't let small situations affect your overall state of mind. Interestingly, calmness isn't something you're born with, but something you can cultivate. It starts with recognizing where you tend to lose control. In what situations are you most likely to react strongly? With whom are you more likely to lose your temper? By understanding these points, you can prepare yourself accordingly. You can practice small pauses. When emotions run high, don't react immediately. Slow your breathing. Stay silent for a few seconds. Give yourself time to think. These very simple actions, if repeated enough times, will gradually become a new reflex. Being calm doesn't make you weak. On the contrary, it's a sign of inner strength. Truly strong people aren't those who react the fastest, but those who control themselves best. They aren't those who talk the most, but those who know when to speak. In a volatile world where things change rapidly and pressure is constant, calmness becomes a huge advantage. It helps you stay on track. It helps you live more steadily. Ultimately, calmness isn't a goal to achieve in a single day. It's a long-term process of training. There will be times when you still lose control. You'll still react emotionally. But each time you recognize this and adjust, you're getting closer to mastering yourself. And when you remain calm during the most difficult times, that's when you are strongest. Not because you lack emotions, but because you don't let emotions dictate your life. Some mistakes in life don't stem from a lack of understanding, but from a moment of losing control. It's just a minute of anger, a single loss of composure, and people can do things they never imagined. And unfortunately, the consequences of those moments can sometimes last a long time, even becoming irreversible. What happens when people lose their temper? When they lose control, people are more likely to say things they shouldn't say, do things they shouldn't do, and then pay the price with regret. When emotions flare up, especially anger, reason often takes a back seat. The brain switches to a rapid reaction state, like a self-defense mechanism. At that moment, people no longer think deeply or consider the consequences. They only want to react immediately to release their emotions. That's why so many hurtful words are uttered in anger. Those words may not reflect a person's true character, but they do cause real hurt. The listener cannot erase the feeling of being offended just because you say you didn't mean it. Not only words, but actions during moments of anger are often out of control. Some people smash things, some leave, and some make extreme decisions like quitting their jobs, cutting off relationships, or doing things they won't understand why they did them later. The danger is that in that moment, people often feel they are right. They believe their reaction is reasonable and necessary. But when the emotions subside, they begin to reflect and realize what they have done. And that's when regret sets in. But unfortunately, things can't always go back to how they were. There are words that can't be taken back. There are actions that can't be erased. There are relationships that, after being hurt once, will never be the same again. This is the story of a wrong decision made in anger. There are people who, because of a moment of impulsiveness, lose their jobs, relationships, or important opportunities that they had built up over many years. Imagine someone who has worked for many years in a stable environment. They have experience, a position, and are on the path to advancement. But in a meeting, because of criticism or feeling disrespected, they lose their composure. It started as a feeling of discomfort. Then came resistance, and then harsh words. They blurted out things that had been building up for a long time, no longer controlling their language. The atmosphere became tense. The meeting ended on a heavy note. At that moment, they might feel they've said what needed to be said. But after just a few hours or days looking back, they begin to see the consequences. Relationships with colleagues are strained, superiors lose trust, and opportunities for advancement gradually close in. There are cases that go even further. A decision to quit a job in anger, a text message that cuts off a relationship while you're hurt. It's an impulsive act that changes things irreversibly. The common thread in these stories is that before the event occurred, everything was fine, or at least could have improved. But because of a single moment of losing control, people single-handedly destroyed everything they had built. It's worth noting that most of these people aren't bad. They're capable, conscientious, and have clear goals. But they lack one crucial thing: the ability to remain calm in difficult situations. Losing your temper doesn't just affect one situation. It creates a chain reaction. One wrong action can lead to many other consequences. A broken relationship can impact your work. A wrong decision can slow down an entire journey. And what many people regret most isn't the mistake itself, but the realization that if they had been a little calmer at the time, things could have been different. Life inevitably involves moments of frustration, misunderstanding, or being treated unfairly. But how you react in those moments will determine a great deal. Staying calm doesn't mean you're weak or accepting of everything. It means you're level-headed enough not to let a momentary emotion ruin what's important in the long run. There are times when silence isn't a sign of defeat, but of preservation. There are times when pausing isn't avoidance, but of protection. And there are times when not reacting immediately is the way to preserve what's worth preserving. Ultimately, everyone can lose their temper, but mature people learn to reduce those outbursts. They understand that a moment of good control can save a lot, and a moment of letting their guard down can cost them a lot. So, before reacting, give yourself a pause, even if it's just for a few seconds. Because sometimes, that small pause is what makes the most of what you've got. In life, not everyone can avoid pressure, conflict, or unexpected situations. But what makes a huge difference between people is not the circumstances, but how they react. Some people become distraught, lose control, and make things worse at the slightest setback. But others, even when faced with great pressure, remain calm and turn the situation in a more positive direction. This is a story about someone who turned the situation around through calmness. Conversely, there are people who, when faced with pressure, remain composed, listen, observe, and find a wise way to handle the situation, thereby turning danger into opportunity. Imagine a work scenario. Crucial project encounters a last-minute hiccup. The client is unhappy, deadlines fall behind, and pressure mounts on the entire team. It's easy for everyone to blame each other, tension spreads, and the situation becomes even more chaotic. But there was one person in the group who didn't react that way. They didn't rush to argue, nor did they look for someone to blame. Instead, they silently observed, listened to all opinions, and tried to understand where the problem lay. While others are swept away by emotions, this person maintains enough distance to see the bigger picture. They ask the right questions, focusing on solutions rather than mistakes. They help people return to a common goal instead of getting bogged down in personal conflict. That calmness produced a very clear effect. The atmosphere gradually calmed down. People began to talk to each other more constructively. The problem was analyzed more clearly. And from there, solutions gradually emerged. Ultimately, the project was not only saved, but also made a good impression on the client due to the professional handling of the difficult situation. Those who remain calm don't need to say much. Their mere presence changes the entire outcome. It's worth noting that they weren't without pressure. They felt stressed and recognized the seriousness of the problem. But they didn't let emotions guide their actions. They chose to maintain inner strength first, before dealing with the external issues. This is the core point. Staying calm won't immediately make the problem smaller, but it prevents you from making it bigger. And sometimes simply not making things worse gives you a better chance of solving it. The same applies to personal life. There are relationships that seem on the verge of collapse due to accumulated misunderstandings. But if one person involved remains calm enough not to react immediately, to listen and talk in the right way, things can take a completely different turn. An argument can turn into a dialogue. A misunderstanding can become an opportunity for deeper understanding. A crisis can become a positive turning point. It all begins with whether or not one person can remain calm. Why do people easily lose their temper? It's often due to a large ego, high expectations, a lack of emotional control, or the accumulation of stress over a long period without proper release. One of the biggest reasons people lose their temper is their ego. When they feel disrespected, denied, or insulted, the natural reaction is to defend themselves. The quickest way many people choose is to react strongly. The bigger the ego, the faster and stronger the reaction. People react not only to the situation, but also to the feeling of hurt inside. This is what makes it difficult for them to stop and think. High expectations are also a significant factor. When you expect others to understand you and behave exactly as you want, you're likely to be disappointed when that doesn't happen. And from disappointment to frustration, and from frustration to losing control, it's a very short step. A lack of emotional control skills also makes many people prone to losing their temper. They are not used to recognizing their own emotions. When emotions run high, they don't know how to handle them, so they react instinctively. Additionally, a very common but often overlooked cause is the buildup of stress. When a person is constantly under pressure without a proper way to relieve it, they become more sensitive. Even small things can become the straw that breaks the camel's back. A normal remark in a normal situation might not cause any problems. But when the mind is tired and burdened, it can become the reason for someone to explode. This shows that staying calm isn't just about handling things in the moment, but also about how you take care of your mental state every day. If you're constantly stressed, sleep-deprived, pressured, and don't have time to recover, it will be very difficult to remain stable when faced with difficult situations. Conversely, when you have a more stable inner foundation, you'll have more buffer time before reacting. You'll be better able to pause, observe, and choose a more appropriate course of action. Calmness, therefore, is not a random reflex, but the result of a training process. What comes from understanding oneself, understanding one's emotions, and knowing how to care for one's inner state. Ultimately, the difference between someone who makes things worse and someone who turns things around isn't about intelligence or experience, but about the ability to remain calm in the most difficult times. When you remain calm, you not only solve problems better, but you also become a source of support for others. You inspire a sense of security, clarity, and trustworthiness. And in a world of constant change, that is one of the most powerful values a person can possess. There are times in life when the problem isn't the circumstances, but rather our own inner state. In the same situation, some people handle it calmly and clearly, while others react with tension, making things even more complicated. This difference largely stems from whether or not a person is in control of their emotions. Signs that you are losing control of your emotions include rapid heartbeat, speaking faster than usual, irritability, difficulty listening, and reacting impulsively without thinking. The body is always the first to signal when emotions start to get out of control. When you feel your heart beating faster and your breathing becoming more rapid, it's not just a physiological reaction. It's a sign that you're becoming agitated. At that moment, the brain switches to a rapid reaction state. You think less deeply, consider fewer consequences, and tend to act immediately. This used to help humans react to danger in nature, but in modern life, it can easily lead to incorrect reactions in relationships and work. Another very clear sign is that you start speaking faster than usual. When emotions run high, words often precede thoughts. You want to speak up immediately, respond immediately, defend your point of view right away. But this haste makes it easy for your words to become uncontrolled. You'll also find yourself more irritable. Small things that would normally be overlooked now become annoying. An unpleasant comment or an unexpected action can trigger a strong reaction. When you lose control of your emotions, your ability to listen is greatly diminished. You no longer truly listen to what others are saying, but only wait for your turn to speak. You listen to contradict, not to understand. This makes communication tense and easily leads to misunderstandings. And the most important sign is that you react immediately without any pause. No thinking, no consideration, no questioning the consequences. It's just an automatic reaction based on the emotion at hand. These signs are very familiar, but many people ignore them or don't recognize them. They just think they're reacting normally, when in reality they're being led by their emotions. If not recognized early on, these reactions will repeat and become habits. And over time, it will not only affect a few situations, but will affect how you live, how you work, and how you build relationships. Staying calm helps you see the true nature of the problem. When your mind is not disturbed, you will be able to distinguish between the truth, fleeting emotions, and what truly needs to be addressed. When you remain calm, the first thing you gain is clarity. You don't get caught up in emotions immediately, so you can see things from a broader perspective. Many problems in life become complicated not because they are inherently difficult, but because of how people react to them. When emotions get too involved, you easily misinterpret the situation, attach negative meanings to it, and exaggerate the problem. For example, a suggestion might be misinterpreted as criticism. An unintentional action might be interpreted as disrespect. A delay might be seen as a lack of concern. When the mind is not at peace, everything is more easily viewed negatively than it actually is. Conversely, when you're calm, you can separate your emotions from the facts. You ask yourself, what's really happening? What did the other person say? What did they mean? Is there clear evidence? Or is it just your own interpretation? Separation helps you avoid many unnecessary misunderstandings. You're not reacting to imagination, but to reality. Staying calm also helps you identify what truly needs addressing. Not everything requires a reaction. Not every conflict needs arguing. Some things can be understood, some require time, and some are best left unaddressed. When your mind is agitated, you often want to solve everything immediately. But when you're calm, you know how to choose what's important and what's not. You don't waste energy on unnecessary things. Another great benefit of calmness is the ability to maintain a long-term perspective. When out of control, people often only see the present, wanting to release their emotions immediately. But when calm, you can think further ahead. What will be the impact of what you are about to say or do in the future? Is it worth it? Is it necessary? This long-term perspective helps you avoid impulsive decisions. You don't sacrifice important things for the sake of fleeting emotions. In relationships, staying calm helps you maintain connection. You don't hurt others because of a moment of anger. You can listen, understand, and respond more respectfully. In the workplace, staying calm helps you solve problems more effectively. You don't panic when things go wrong. You don't blame others when mistakes occur. You focus on finding solutions instead of getting caught up in negative emotions. More importantly, calmness helps you maintain inner stability. You don't let external fluctuations shake you too much. You can remain clear-headed and steadfast even when circumstances change. Ultimately, realizing you're losing control of your emotions isn't a bad thing. It's the first step toward change. When you see the signs, you have a chance to stop. And just a pause creates a different choice. Calmness doesn't come in a day. But every time you realize it, every time you stop, every time you choose to react a little slower, you are gradually building your ability to master yourself. And when you are calm enough to see things clearly, many seemingly complicated things will become much simpler. Not because life gets easier, but because you have a clearer understanding. In daily life, many situations don't give us time to prepare. It's an unexpected remark, an unforeseen action, a sudden pressure. And it is in those moments that how we react or respond will determine the final outcome. The difference between these two things may seem small, but it creates a huge gap in how a person lives and grows. The difference between reacting and responding. Reacting is acting impulsively based on emotion, while responding is acting after careful consideration. People always choose to respond rather than react. Reactions often happen very quickly, almost instantly. When your emotions are stirred, you immediately say what you think and do what you want to do without thinking. It's a natural reflex, but it can easily lead to mistakes. When reacting, you're often guided by the strongest emotion at that moment. If you're angry, your words will be aggressive. If you're worried, your actions will be defensive. If you're hurt, you might say things to protect yourself, but end up hurting others. Responding is different. It has a pause in between. It's not long, but enough time for you to think. You recognize your feelings, but don't act on them immediately. You give yourself time to consider the situation, weigh the consequences, and choose a more appropriate course of action. That pause is what makes the difference. Reactors are often controlled by circumstances. Responders retain the initiative. In relationships, reactions can easily lead to conflict. An offensive remark can trigger further hurtful comments. Everyone wants to defend their point of view, and the conversation quickly turns into an argument. But if one person involved chooses to respond instead of reacting, the situation can change completely. They don't speak immediately. They don't retort right away. They listen, think, and respond in a controlled manner. This helps maintain respect and opens the possibility of mutual understanding. The same applies to work. Hasty reaction can ruin a decision. A slower response can help you see things more clearly and choose the right option. The important thing is that feedback doesn't mean being slow or indecisive. It's clarity after careful consideration. It helps you act correctly rather than just quickly. The first method is to pause before reacting. Just stopping for a few seconds, taking a deep breath, not responding immediately will help you avoid many unnecessary mistakes. It sounds simple, but pausing is one of the hardest skills. Because when emotions run high, human instinct is to react immediately. You want to speak up right away, to release the tension immediately, to prove yourself immediately. But that's precisely when you need to stop the most. Just a few seconds, not long. Deep breath, a brief silence. But enough to reduce the intensity of the emotion. When you pause, you're creating distance between emotion and action. You're no longer swept away immediately. You have a chance to reflect on what you're about to say or do. For example, when you receive a message that annoys you, instead of replying immediately, put your phone down for a few minutes. When you're in an argument, instead of saying the next thing right away, be silent for a few seconds and take a breath. These small actions have a huge impact. They help you avoid saying things you'll regret later. They help you avoid escalating the situation beyond what's necessary. Pausing isn't avoidance. It's a way to handle things better. You're not ignoring the problem, but simply choosing the right time and method to address it. Initially, you might forget. You might still react out of old habits. But if you become aware and practice, pausing will gradually become a new reflex. One important point is that you don't need to be perfect. Just reduce those impulsive reactions. Every time you manage to pause, even for a moment, you've made progress. When you get used to pausing, you'll realize something. Many situations don't require as strong a reaction as you think. Many problems diminish on their own when you don't escalate them. You'll also find yourself less tired, because you're no longer wasting energy on unnecessary conflicts. You don't have to fix mistakes you made while you were out of control. More importantly, you begin to feel in control of yourself. You're no longer carried away by emotions. You no longer have so many regrets after impulsive actions. The difference between reacting and responding is not just a matter of communication skills, but a sign of inner maturity. A mature person isn't someone without emotions, but someone who knows how to navigate those emotions with equanimity. And it all starts with something very small. Stop before you react. Just a few seconds, but enough to change the outcome of a conversation, enough to save a relationship, enough to avoid a wrong decision. When you do that enough times, you will not only handle situations better, but you will also build a very strong inner strength. Inner strength helps you navigate through changes without being swept away. It helps you maintain clarity in difficult times. It helps you live proactively, rather than reacting to circumstances. Ultimately, life is not only defined by what happens, but also by how you respond to it. And if you choose the right way to respond, you've grasped one of the most important keys to living a fulfilling life. In the journey of learning to stay calm, many people often focus only on handling situations when emotions have already flared up. But in reality, to master emotions, you need to go a step deeper. It's not just about suppressing them, but about understanding your emotions and building a strong inner foundation so you won't be easily swept away. This is a long process, but it's entirely achievable if you follow the right path. The second method is to cultivate the habit of observing your emotions. Instead of letting emotions overwhelm you, learn to recognize when you are angry, anxious, or stressed. This awareness helps you to better control your emotions. Most people don't actually recognize their emotions when they arise. They only realize it when the emotions have become too strong, when they've said things they shouldn't have said or done things they shouldn't have done. At that point, controlling them becomes much more difficult. Therefore, the important step is to learn how to identify emotions as early as possible. When you start feeling upset, stop and ask yourself, what am I feeling? Is it anger, worry, sadness, or simply fatigue? Naming the emotion helps you detach yourself from it for a while. When you tell yourself that you are angry, you are no longer entirely the anger itself. You become the observer of it. And it is this small distance that gives you more control. Observing your emotions doesn't mean judging them or trying to eliminate them immediately. You don't need to blame yourself for being angry or worried. Emotions are natural. The important thing is that you recognize them and don't let them guide your actions. You can start with very simple things. When you find yourself reacting more strongly than usual, pay attention to your body. Is your heart beating fast? Is your breathing rapid? Is your body tense? These signs often appear before you even realize them in your thoughts. When you notice it, pause. There's no need to do anything immediately. Just observe. Slow your breathing. Give yourself a few seconds for the emotion to pass. You'll find that many emotions, if not further fueled, will naturally subside. Interestingly, when you observe your emotions long enough, you begin to understand yourself better. You'll learn what easily makes you lose your temper, which situations trigger your reactions. And from there, you can prepare for future occasions. Observing your emotions isn't a skill to be used only when a problem arises. It's a habit that should be maintained daily. When you get used to reflecting on your emotions, you'll live more mindfully, without being overly swept away by internal fluctuations. The third method is building inner strength. Meditation, reading, exercise, and a disciplined lifestyle help reduce stress and increase your ability to remain calm in difficult situations. Staying calm in a difficult moment depends not only on skill, but also on your underlying state. If you are constantly stressed, sleep-deprived, under pressure, and have no way to relieve it, you will easily lose control when faced with unexpected situations. Conversely, when you have a more stable inner state, you have more buffer time before reacting. You're less easily agitated. You're better able to pause and think clearly. Meditation is one of the most effective ways to cultivate calmness. By sitting still and observing your breath, you are training your mind not to be carried away by thoughts. It may be difficult at first, but with persistence, you will find your ability to concentrate and be aware increases significantly. Reading is also a way to nurture one's inner self. Good books not only provide knowledge, but also help broaden your perspective. When you understand more about people in life, you will be less likely to react extremely to difficult situations. Exercise helps relieve accumulated stress in the body. Often, negative emotions are not only in your thoughts, but also in your physical state. When your body is active, you will feel lighter and be able to control your emotions more easily. Living a disciplined life is a crucial foundation. When you maintain basic habits like getting enough sleep, eating a balanced diet, and working on time, you're creating inner stability. And it is this stability that helps you avoid being overly shaken when faced with adversity. A strong inner self isn't about being devoid of emotions, but about not being overly swayed by them. You may still feel sad, angry, and worried, but you won't be overwhelmed by them. You can navigate through emotions without losing yourself. The important thing is that all these methods take time. There's no way to calm you down instantly in every situation. But if you persevere and practice, you'll see a noticeable change. You'll react less impulsively, say fewer things you'll regret, get less caught up in negative emotions. And most importantly, you'll feel more in control of your life. Ultimately, staying calm isn't a single skill, but rather the result of understanding yourself, observing yourself, and taking care of yourself every day. When you do these things well, calmness will no longer be something you have to strive for, but will become a natural part of how you live. There's a simple truth that not everyone realizes. A person's life isn't just shaped by big opportunities or significant turning points, but also by how they react in very small moments. One instance of staying calm or one instance of losing control may seem insignificant, but repeated enough times, it can lead to two very different paths. A practical lesson for the audience: if you easily lose your temper today, don't blame yourself, but start practicing little by little. Each time you manage to stay calm, you're getting closer to a more mature version of yourself. Many people, upon realizing they are prone to anger or impulsive reactions, tend to blame themselves. They think they are weak, lack self-control, or are not strong enough. But in reality, emotions are a very natural part of being human. No one is born knowing how to completely master their emotions. Therefore, the important thing is not whether you lose your temper, but whether you recognize it and start to change. Maturity doesn't come from never making mistakes, but from learning from your shortcomings. Start with the small things. When you feel upset, try pausing for a moment instead of reacting immediately. When you want to say something while you're angry, try being silent for a few seconds. You realize you're stressed, take a deep breath and give yourself time. These actions may seem simple, but if you maintain them, they will create a noticeable change. You'll find yourself saying fewer things you'll regret, doing fewer things that make situations worse. And gradually, you'll feel more in control of yourself. The important thing is that you don't need to change completely right away. You don't need to become someone who stays calm in every situation. Just be a little better than before. Every time you manage to stay calm, even in a small situation, that's a step forward. Sustainable change doesn't come from massive efforts in a short period, but from small, consistent improvements. Today, you stop once. Tomorrow, you do it twice. Gradually, it becomes a new reflex. Another important thing is to be gentle with yourself during this process. There will be times when you lose control. You'll still say things you shouldn't. You'll still react emotionally. Instead of dwelling on it for too long, look back and learn from the experience. You might ask yourself what caused you to lose your composure. Next time you encounter a similar situation, how could you have acted differently? This observation will help you improve faster. When you persevere in practicing this, you'll realize one thing. Calmness not only helps you handle difficult situations better, but also helps you live more peacefully each day. You're no longer caught up in trivial matters. You don't react strongly to things that aren't worth it. Maintain inner stability even when the outside world is turbulent. In summary, the deeper meaning is that staying calm not only helps you handle situations better, but also helps you maintain your character, relationships, and the right path in life. A person's character is not only revealed in favorable times, but most clearly in difficult times. When things don't go as planned, when you're misunderstood, when you're hurt, how you react will show who you are. If you easily lose control, you might say things that don't align with your values. You might hurt others unintentionally. And over time, that will affect how others perceive you. Conversely, when you remain calm, you maintain consistency in your way of life. You don't let fleeting emotions derail your long-term values. You become someone others can trust because they know you're not easily swayed by emotions. In relationships, calmness is a crucial element in maintaining their stability. Many relationships don't break down because of major problems, but because of small, repeated reactions, words spoken in anger, thoughtless actions, and moments of losing control of emotions. When you stay calm, you reduce a lot of unnecessary hurt. You know how to listen, how to talk, and when to stop. This is what makes your relationships smoother and more lasting. Staying calm also helps you stay on track in life. When you're not overly controlled by emotions, you can make decisions that are more aligned with your long-term goals. You don't give up because of a difficult moment. You don't stray from your path because of a single disappointment. In a world of pressure and uncertainty, staying calm is not easy. But precisely because it's difficult, it becomes a huge advantage. Those who remain calm often go further, not because they don't face difficulties, but because they don't let difficulties distract them. Ultimately, staying calm isn't about becoming a perfect person, but about becoming a steadfast one. A person who knows what they're doing, where they're going, and isn't easily swept away by fleeting waves. And that journey doesn't begin with big things. It begins with a very small moment. One time you choose to stop instead of reacting. One time you choose to think instead of acting impulsively. If you persevere with those small choices, over time you will find that you not only change how you react, but also how you live. And that is the foundation of a stable and mature life. In a turbulent world, those who can remain calm have the greatest advantage. When you're not carried away by emotions, you have more choices, are wiser, and have fewer regrets. Calmness isn't weakness, but a profound form of strength. If you find this video valuable, please like, share, subscribe to the Simple Philosophy channel to cultivate a stronger inner self together every day.